And now we will have a key presentation, which is called Strengthening Linkages, Coordination and Accountability in Africa's Agriculture Research and Innovation System. And I'd like to invite Dr. Abdou Tenkouano, Executive Director of CORAF and co-leader of the CADA XP4 for the presentation. Thank you.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. Excellence, Monsieur le ministre d'État, ministre de l'Agriculture de la République de Côte d'Ivoire, Monsieur Kobena Adjoumani. Excellence, Madame le commissaire chargé de l'agriculture de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Madame Josepha Sako. Excellence, Madame le ministre de l'Agriculture de la République du Libéria, Honorable Janine Cooper. Monsieur le Président du Conseil d'administration de OneCGIAR, Dr. Marco Ferroni. Madame la représentante du Président du Conseil d'administration du Forum africain de la recherche agricole, Madame Bongiwe Njobe. Mesdames et Messieurs les directeurs centraux et généraux du OneCGIAR, distingués invités en vos rangs, grades et qualités. Ma présentation sera en anglais. Et j'aimerais que l'on me la projette. Nous vivons des moments extrêmement importants, des moments extrêmement historiques. And I have the privilege on behalf of the CADEP XP4 organizations led by Farah to make this presentation that I'm not sure that I was the one deserving to make it, but we are moving as a consortium that has been active in reforming itself, and we welcome the reform that are happening in the OneCGIAR, and we like to make sure that as the OneCGIAR reforms itself, it helps us to support ourselves better. It's no secret that Africa is a place where you can find everything that we do not want. But it's not a fatality. It's something that we can easily overcome. Climate change has been there for a long time. Environmental degradation has been a result of it. We have had urbanization and demographic changes that are changing our diets and requiring that we have new ways of doing things. And of recent, armed conflicts have come to make things even worse. And even conflicts that are not happening in our area are affecting us. I watched the headlines this morning with Secretary General of the United Nations predicting a massive hunger in our area. We don't want that to happen, and I think we can avert it. And then global health crisis. What is new is that this confluence of things, of disruptors, are making it even more necessary for us to work together. What I'm trying to say here is that the issues are so many that no one has the capacity to address them alone. They are humbling, they are intimidating, and they are stretching our own individual resources to the limit. But when we pull together our resources, we are able to address them successfully. What COVID has come to show us And I think this is a lesson that we have to learn from for our lifetime. It's that even when we have food, we have money to buy the food that we need, that food wasn't coming in because of lockdown. And even from one community to another, there wasn't a possibility of moving the food. Therefore, we are left with no choice but to develop what I call a local economy. Let's go back to those principles. The pandemic has shown that all the disruptors are amplified, and the main person who suffer that are our youth and women. It has shown to some clear extent deep-rooted inequality. Some people call it racial and social injustice in accessing the means of living, but also simply in having even the way of taking care of our health. What does that mean? If we want to create a just and regenerative future, we need to address these large interconnected problems with approaches that lead us to make change through complexity and uncertainty. We need to move despite the uncertainty. What does that mean for us collectively? That we do not have to follow prescriptive approaches. We have to find solutions together. And to do that, we need, and I repeat, we need to listen to those that live the problems and will have the most stake at solving the problems. I'm looking back from my years as a scientist in the CGIAR and looking at some of the things that we did and we did with our counterparts in the country and achieved a lot. The first thing, as a scientist posted in southern Nigeria, we had a station. It had one of the best laboratories in the region. And as a result, it attracted students from all the universities. And as it attracted them, they did the work. And that work went to the credit of the CGIAR, showing that the nurses were the contributors to, I would say, the shining of the CGIAR. We also found out that working in just one part of the Nigerian country wasn't enough for us to make progress. We connected to CNRA here, the Centre National de Recherche Agricole, and we found out that they had a unique strain of the pathogen that we're fighting, and that we needed to bring expertise from them to help us. And when they did, it allowed us to make even further progress in our work. Then I'm shifting to the east to go to the Kawanda Agricultural Research Station in Uganda, where I was privileged to be part of the team that helped to set up the banana research program. We had a joint program. Research was being done at the Kawanda station in terms of creating new breeds, and it was a joint program that led to the creation of what is called the Narita varieties. Narita, NAR standing for narrow, ITA standing for IITA, of course. Then we found out when there was an outbreak of the African strain of the cassava mosaic disease in East Africa, particularly in Uganda, that help could have been brought from West Africa, from IITA. But to do that, the requirement was a lot of cooperation. And Kenya came to the rescue with KEFIS accepting to put in place an open quarantine system where materials coming from the West would transit through before they go to Uganda. Beauty of collaboration. And then learning from that experience, we got prepared in West Africa when Ebola came and prevented our farmers from growing and from harvesting seeds that they needed to perpetuate the crops. We were able to mobilize solidarity from the region thanks to what we learned from the East. Now, we don't want to be just running after crisis, solving crisis. It is wise to be prepared for future shocks. So we need to balance immediacy with resilience. Ambassador Sako said it, we need to be prepared for future shocks. They are just next door, knocking, but we can be smart enough to outsmart them. In our wisdom, our continent leaders designed what is called the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program to just provide that mechanism of building resilience and be prepared. Borderless problems call for borderless solutions. No country has the full capacity to address all the issues, but when we work together, we are able to do that. So in West Africa, we, under the leadership of ECOWAS, set up what we call the West Africa Agricultural Program, and there are similar experiences in the East and in the southern part of the continent. And essentially what we did was to set up a number of centers of specialization on different commodities on the basis that you can work on what you have a comparative advantage for, but not just for yourself, but for the whole region. And we found that those centers that we have set up would be the ideal places where the international expertise coming from the CGIAR, coming from Europe, coming from America, would be coming in to help build capacity. And we have had success in that area. And we also found out that for us to work together, we need to speak the same language. This is just for seed systems. At the beginning, a lot of countries were in the red because they weren't following a common policy. But just 3 years of working together, and AGRA is also to be commended for that, we were able to turn a lot of reds into yellows or green so that we have common policies that facilitate for the private sector to get interested in investing. We went further and said, we don't want to be surprised anymore by pests and diseases. And I'm pleased that this country, Côte d'Ivoire, has invested, partly with our support, to develop a center of excellence on transboundary plant pathogens. This was inaugurated just last year. And it is a place where high-level science is being done by young people. And we believe that this needs to be supported. While we work with centers of specialization, it is important to have a mechanism for making the development of technologies at one location benefit other location. So we have a mechanism of exchange. And that mechanism of exchange has worked very well. We have a regional catalog. And the point here is that when we put our resources together, we don't always need outside help when we have a problem. When, as I said, Ebola came in, some of the countries that were hit were going to experience a food shortage after the health crisis. We mobilized from the private sector the supply of seed from as far as Nigeria, driving loads of lorries across Côte d'Ivoire. So it required a lot of organization, cooperation, and we were able, by doing so, to turn our work into providing seeds of solidarity as well as resilience when things are okay. Farmer-centric strategy. Yes, technologies can move across borders, but until they get it to the field of farmers, they haven't reached where we want to go. This graph is complex, and I don't intend for you to look at it entirely. Just look at all the green areas as being what we have done, we do with the farmers. The yellow areas as what we are forced somehow to do away from them when we work in our laboratories. And the pink areas are where we need support, finance mostly, to allow them to appropriate the technologies that have gone to their side. Now, my first worry, everything was going fine. My first worry was when I saw this graph of one CGIAR center explaining that they wanted to be partnership-centric, and I felt that was the right word. But when I looked at the way they depicted it, the alignment with the government priorities with resource partners was very little. What is it that you want to be doing in a place if it is not being done for the benefit of that place? And since donors are aligning more and more with government priorities, to me, it would just make sense that we make that inner circle much, much bigger and do a lot more together than separately. And many players are coming by the day, and it needs coordination. Thanks to the leadership of the African Development Bank, we now have TACT that is providing a mechanism of coordinating across the continent. For us in West Africa, what it means is that technologies that are developed outside our region, when they are cleared by the clearinghouse, we take them into our centers of specialization, and they go naturally through our dissemination mechanism. And we also offer to the clearinghouse the technologies that come from our centers. And in preparation of our new funding scheme, we have done a careful matching of all the CG and other international centers with our different centers of specialization to see how they can come and support us. And support us means that we would have some resources that we would ask them. If you would want to ask to help us, we could support this and that, particularly in capacity building. It's urgent that we use resources efficiently. These graphs are not of me. These are public reports showing that humanitarian help, only 0.4% go to our local organizations, which are close to the people. And for development aid, only 5.2% reaches the ground. So we're not using the money efficiently. We need to change that by relying more on the African change makers. And the private sector itself is contributing heavily. This is showing that for startups to mobilize resources in 2022, in just 17 weeks, the threshold of $2 billion was reached, when several years earlier in 2020, it took 46 weeks, and we didn't even reach that. It shows that our youth are making proposals that are increasingly attractive and fundable, and we can bring them to be our champions for agriculture, research, and development. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure that I could be going on, but this graph is just saying that we are in this business together. We want to be moving more and more together. The graph that is not showing is just indicating that the productivity level by farmer in Africa is very low, while the rest of the world is very high. So we do need to work on improving that productivity. A few words of advice maybe. We need to be bringing the new technologies to make change, but we have to do it in a non-disruptive way. We have institutions, don't destroy them, work with them, and things will work better for all of us. I'm also saying that we need to be demand responsive. We shouldn't be thinking for others. Let's those who need our help to say what they need, and then we will respond to that. Finally, we need new business models. We've been assuming that the poor farmer will remain poor, and we even have the term of pro-poor technology. This is a word that I think we should not use anymore. We don't want pro-poor technology. We don't want to perpetuate poverty. We need to work to change that condition. So let's settle for new deals. Local context matters now more than ever. Let's make sure that we harness our diversity in a very disciplined way. Let's make sure that when we engage, we empower. Let's make sure that we are accountable and accessible at all times. Let's leverage on the learning. We've done quite a few things that we need to learn from. And subsidiary principle is a must. We have a mechanism of multiple accountability. Let's use it. If we don't use it efficiently, the young people will come and ask you, what did you do with our future? We don't want them to be asking that question. And the quote there, I don't want to read it. The originator, the author is here, and he can confirm that the way we've been operating is essentially helping others with our resources, while we could help ourselves with our resources. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been my privilege to deliver this presentation. Thank you very much.